First and foremost, man, how you doing? Everybody happy and healthy in your world?
Yeah, we're all hanging in best we can, like I think everybody is doing right now.
Yeah, good. Let's just jump right into this. How are you coping without Padres baseball right now, man?
It's a little bit weird. I mean, I think it is for anybody. You don't get the opportunity to sit down at night, flip on the TV, and find a basketball game or a hockey game, which is, I think, what we all expect this time of year. And Thursday, of course, was supposed to be opening day for baseball, Padres and Rockies at 1:10. It is still in my calendar on my phone, which feels a little bit odd, but I just can't bring myself to go in there and delete it. So it's very strange, but obviously there are bigger things happening in the world, and I think we all kind of understand that and accept that.
Yeah. I think the caveat of all these sports conversations is that there's a bigger issue going on, but people still crave and love to talk sports in this time. You mentioned opening day Thursday. Do you have an idea of how weird that's going to be to not go to the ballpark and get behind a mic come Thursday?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying our best to try and distract fans from sort of what could be for a lot of people, I guess, the monotony of the day to day right now, with a lot of people working from home or not being able to work or just kind of being cooped up inside, generally speaking. So we've kind of restarted our Padres Social Hour show, streaming it online, and so I will be behind a microphone on Thursday. It'll just be like in my office here in San Marcos, as opposed to in the booth behind home plate at Petco Park. But yeah, it's obviously going to be really, really weird. It's going to be, I think, a little bit sad, but again, we all just keep reminding ourselves, look, baseball is not at the top of anybody's priority list right now, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more though for those Padre fans craving for Padres content about Social Hour and what you guys offer there.
Yeah, so it's a show we used to do that aired before the pregame show every single day, all season long on Fox Sports San Diego. I think we also had it on the radio. We streamed it online. And the essence of the show always was kind of connectivity and interactivity with the fan base and being able to lock in with the fans and chat and go back and forth. We would put their tweets on the screen. And this was kind of before everybody did that all of the time. So we felt like we were maybe a little bit ahead of the curve. The show's gone away for whatever reasons, and now we brought it back. We thought this was maybe the right time to bring it back. So we're streaming it Monday through Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Local time, obviously, on the Padres Facebook page, the Padres YouTube page, and the Padres Twitter page. And same kind of thing, just trying to distract best we can, talk to different people around baseball, around sports, maybe even beyond that as time goes on, and just try and entertain, I think, again, to the best of our abilities.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely the perfect time for it. Everyone I've talked to around baseball and sports are craving for every possible thing that is sports right now. So I think it's a great time for it. Speaking of people trying to stay busy, what have you been doing besides baseball and the lack thereof?
Well, it's an interesting situation. Our son turned 4 last week on Friday, so I am now a preschool teacher, unofficially, I guess. I don't think I'm licensed by the state of California, but my wife, thankfully, is able to kind of continue to do her job without any interruption. She had been working remotely for her company for a couple of years now, so her situation is very much unchanged in terms of going to work, here in our house and doing everything that she always does. So I'm in charge when it comes to the little guy, and I've been trying to keep him busy, somewhat educated, somewhat entertained best I can throughout the day. And I'll echo what a lot of people I know have said on social media and otherwise already in the last couple of weeks. Teachers, preschool teachers, daycare workers, everybody, you are all severely underpaid. Not that we didn't know that beforehand, but oh my goodness, a whole new level of respect certainly for everybody in education.
Yeah, I've heard a ton about that. That's awesome. It's wild times. As far as just wanting to talk a little bit of Padres baseball, I know spring training was short and all that, but what little bit you got to see being around the clubhouse, who were some guys that got you fired up to start talking about?
It might be a little bit interesting or ironic or funny, whatever word you want to use, because I think going into spring training, the starting pitching, the rotation was maybe the biggest question mark that a lot of fans had, and I'll put myself in that category. But watching Dinelson Lamet, watching Chris Paddock, watching Garrett Richards, particularly the guys at the top of the rotation, I was really, really encouraged and excited by what I saw out of those guys. So that was something that was pretty cool. Obviously, with guys like Fernando Tatis and Manny Machado, anytime you get them out there, it's a big deal, and it's something you enjoy seeing, and it kind of gets you excited for the season. And then the young pitchers, Mackenzie Gore, Luis Patino, we got our first kind of real taste of them. And those are guys that are coming fast to the big league level. I don't know whether it'll be this year because I don't know what this year is going to look like, of course, from a baseball perspective. But they are a couple of guys who I think could make an absolutely monstrous impact on the Padre roster, not just this year and next year, but for several years afterwards.
Obviously, you, like anybody else, can only speculate about the possible upcoming season. But in your speculation, what do you think Major League Baseball will do? And I know you have no idea how long this will go on or when it'll start, but do you have any idea what baseball could do to handle this situation?
I mean, they're going to have options. You know, how realistic those options are, of course, will be determined by what is a global, not even a national, crisis here. Just reading everything we've read in the last couple of weeks, and by they I mean both Major League Baseball, the league, and the Players Association, they want to play as many games as possible. So nobody's looking to get out of playing games. At the same time, I think we all realize 162 games is probably out of the question, almost certainly out of the question. Maybe 100 games could end up being out of the question. I don't know. Maybe we end up playing 81, a half. Maybe we play 40. I don't know. They're going to play. This is all I can say, I think. They're going to play as many as they possibly can, while, of course, respecting the health and safety, not only of the players and the people around the ballparks, but, of the communities at large. Baseball stadiums are obviously, by definition, I guess, large gatherings of people, and that's what we're all trying to avoid right now. And it's something that has to be kept top in mind. So all I know is they want to play as many as they possibly can. What that number is, unfortunately, there's no way to have any idea right now.
Yeah. You have such a voice with the fans. People turn you on in their car all the time when it's Padres season. You have such a connection with everybody that is a Padres fan. What would be your message to those people that, love to listen to you and love to hear you talk about Padres baseball?
Well, Jake, first of all, thank you. That's very nice of you to say. And, that's the most important part of the job, I think. And Ted would agree with me. Don would agree with me. Mud would agree with me. Tony would agree with me. Anybody on our broadcast team. It's just about connecting with the fans best we can, trying to be there for the fans. Like we said earlier, sports is the ultimate distraction, or it's supposed to be. And unfortunately, we can't do that right now. So again, I guess that's part of why we rebooted Padres Social Hours, to just be able to provide that. We had Mark Grant on the first show. We had Don Orsillo on this week. We'll be kind of cycling in all of our broadcast friends, over time as we do these shows, just to try and give access to those voices, those faces to the fans. But know that we miss you guys as much, if not more, than you miss us. And it will be a very, very, very special opening day this year, whenever that ends up being.
Yeah, you segued perfectly into my next question. When and if this opening day does come, where do you have a gauge of how you think you'll personally be feeling when you can get behind the mic again?
Just great appreciation for it. I mean, I never take my job for granted. Doing what I do is been a dream of mine since I was a little kid, literally. So every day I go in fresh, and I try and remind myself that I'm doing something that there are maybe millions of people in the world, who would love to do. And I'm somehow lucky enough to not only do it for one of the 30 major league clubs, but to do it for this community, for this fan base in this city. And I never take it for granted. But that level of appreciation, I think, when we are back behind the mic, whenever that is, and I can kind of look to my left and see Ted Leitner, and, I get to have fun and sit around with my broadcaster friends before a game and kick back topics and, hey, what are you going to talk about today? To be able to get back to that normalcy, have those conversations, and then to be able to present Padre baseball to the fans here in San Diego. Oh boy, that will be, frankly, just even talking about it now, getting a little emotional just thinking about it. So yeah, that's going to be a big day for all of us, for the fans, for the players, for everybody around the ballpark and in the organization. And it's probably going to be pretty emotional now that you mention it.
Have people on social media or with the social hour rebooting, have people reached out to you, fans, or I don't know, anybody on social media? And if they have, what has been their message to you guys and just overall?
It's such a wonderful community we have here, of Padre fans. And yeah, I've heard from tons of people, and I've tried to go back and forth, as much as I could with people. I think it's just a sense right now of wanting to be there for each other and, doing whatever we can. And I'm not trying to over promote or over plug the show, but that's the whole point, right? It's
Right.
like, we're here for you. You're here for us. Let's have, even if it's a 30-minute deal, even if it's a 45-minute deal today, even if it's an hour, just some little sense of normalcy. You can put the show on YouTube on your TV. You can listen to some of the interviews after the fact, and maybe just forget for a moment, the craziness of the modern world, while of course keeping in mind, the important things like keeping distance and washing your hands and all that other stuff that we've learned so much about in these days and weeks that have gone by. But yeah, it's just, let's all try and help each other through this by, supplying some kind of distraction or at least the illusion of normalcy.
And speaking of distraction and normalcy, let me ask you this. When this team does get going, just in your personal opinion, how good do you think they can be? Where do you feel their ceiling is at? Just talk a little baseball with me for a minute.
It feels weird to just have a normal baseball
Right?
conversation. I mean, I'll give my answer with sort of the caveat of this is what I would have said had you asked me this question a month ago, and
Right.
things are going to change a lot, obviously, based upon the length of the season. And I've actually had some interesting conversations lately with a lot of people smarter than I am in the baseball world, and they've said, hey, if this thing is shorter, the shorter it gets, the more volatile it's going to be. And so, I think for teams that maybe looked at themselves as a second or third place team, if you're only playing 100 games or 80 games, maybe you say, hey, let's go for this thing because, it's going to be a little bit different. Those top heavy, Dodger type teams that we've seen the last couple of years probably aren't going to be able to run away the way they did over the course of a 162 game season. But generally, obviously, very excited about the Padres. I loved the Tommy Pham addition this offseason. He's pretty much penciled in to be the everyday left fielder. You're building on Machado and Tatis on the left side. You're hoping Eric Hosmer, can get some things going offensively, return to form defensively. There are a lot of pieces to be very excited about. Trent Grisham, who came over in the trade with the Brewers this offseason, looked excellent in spring training. He's probably your starting center fielder. Will Myers, as everybody knows, has had his ups and downs, but he was off to a stellar start in spring training, hitting the ball just with absolute power. So if he can keep that up, you stick him in right field. And like I said earlier, the starting pitching looked really impressive from what we saw in spring training. So there's a lot to be excited about. I don't do preseason win-loss predictions, certainly not in these particular situations. But again, I think the cool thing for all of us who follow the Padres is we're seeing the building continue, and we're seeing the ascent here. The stock is rising, and that's the important thing, I think, right now.
Yeah. Now I know you have blue eyes, but how do you look in the brown and gold, man? What are your thoughts on the jerseys and all that?
I'm digging it. I got some stuff right. Where is it? Here it is. I got a lot of new gear this spring. I'm very
There you go.
excited, and it's I even before I got to San Diego, even before I began working for the Padres, I just as a baseball fan, I always thought to myself, why aren't the Padres wearing brown anymore? They were the only team, and that's kind of the neat thing. And we saw it in spring training. I remarked on the air and off the air to people, I don't know, a dozen times during spring training. Man, at these games, it really seems like there are so many Padre fans. And maybe there were a lot of Padre fans at these games, the road games, in Goodyear, Arizona against the Reds. Or maybe they're just really easy to notice now because they're the only people wearing brown and gold. So it's a big time win as far as I'm concerned. The uniforms look great in spring training. And again, I cannot wait to see them in regular season action.
Yeah, I love them too. I'm a huge fan of them, but nobody cares about my opinion. Let me ask let me ask you this. Put you on the spot a touch. We're doing something at Channel 8 where we've been asking people what their favorite moment in sports history was, and I know there's a billion things for you to try and go through. But if you had an idea, we've been trying to signify it with a photo. Like, for example, I chose the photo of George Bush after 9/11, after he threw out the first, well, I guess it was before he threw out the first pitch, holding his thumb up on the mound. Then we kind of told a story. If just on the spot you could think of maybe one photo or moment, that couple that pop in your head and why they're so important to you, do you have any ideas, or is it too thrown at you?
Well, the 9/11 thing, sparks another memory. I grew up a Met fan, and that first game at Shea that they played after 9/11, a couple of weeks later, whatever it was against the Braves. And in those years, the Mets were always kind of trying to catch the Braves in the National League East and never did. But Mike Piazza hit, it's famous now, a very dramatic home run against the Braves, basically to win the game late in the game. And it was just this incredible moment of, it felt like the weight came off everybody's shoulders, who was watching that game, who was into that. And I have family in New York, and we've talked about it. It was like in that instant, Mike Piazza hitting a huge home run. As a fan, you couldn't do anything but celebrate in that moment, even though you hadn't felt like celebrating in weeks because of the tragedy that had occurred. And it just felt like an instantaneous, if temporary, return to normalcy. Again, these things that take us away from sports have a tendency to amplify the moments. I think that's what you're talking about with that first pitch at the World Series later that year, and what I remember certainly from that time as well.
Now, let me just ask you one final question. We've touched on it a bit, but I want to hear you elaborate a little on it. When there are tough times normally in the world, everybody has turned to sports. And to not have that right now has been super palpable. It's been weird to feel without being able to turn to sports. How much has that made an impact, do you think, on our current situation, not having sports to be able to look at?
I think for those of us, where sports is such a huge part of our lives, it is a big deal, but it's more of an adjustment than anything else. Because again, I think we can all zoom out and see the reality of the larger picture right now. And the larger picture makes it very, very obvious that there should be no sports going on. One of the things I've read looking for positivity the last couple of days, I've seen, more and more articles pop up about kind of the resiliency of the human being and our ability to adapt. And I think that's what everybody's doing right now. If I would have told you 3 months ago, hey, by the way, there's going to be a period of time where you're going to be locked in your house. You can't really go anywhere. It's going to be takeout pretty much and nothing else. Maybe you go to the grocery store once a week, but you're not going to go to work. Your kids are not going to go to school. You would have thought that's impossible. I wouldn't be able to do that. And now here we are faced with that situation, realizing, hey, we've got to do this. We've got no other choice right now. And we've adapted and we're making the most of it, even without sports. And is it easier now to do it than probably any other time in human history? Absolutely. We have our streaming services. We have all our other online, things. We have our smartphones where you can, for better or worse, kill an hour without even realizing it, playing some mindless game. But we are adaptable. We are resilient. And, I think one of the messages to continue to push forward is whenever this is over, whatever it is, we will come out of it stronger. There will be tragedy. There will be heartbreak, certainly. But I think as human beings and inhabitants of this planet, all the way around the globe, we understand that we're doing what we have to do and we'll make it work.
I was going to ask if you had any final messages, but I think that's a pretty good note to leave it off on, man. I just really want to thank you so much for taking the time and helping a lot of people get through a tough time just talking baseball and talking about a hard situation. So thank you very, very much. And I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Jake. Absolutely.